Hi, I'm Michelle with the Garrett Public Library, and I will be doing this week's Railroader reading. I'm reading a story it was from May 2022. It's the Reader's Digest, and it's an inspirational story, and it's entitled A Major Leaguer's Second Chance at Life. It says a suicide attempt nearly ended Drew Robinson's story. Now he is adding the most remarkable chapters yet. And this story is by Jeff Passan. On April 16, 2020, Drew Robinson woke up, sat at his kitchen table, and finished writing a note that would explain to his family and friends why he had decided to end his life. I hope you guys realize that no one could have seen this coming to prevent it because of how hard I tried to hide it, he wrote, and it is no one's fault. He apologized to Diana, Daryl, Renee, Brittany, and Chad, the 5 people he loved the most, the ones who knew him best and still couldn't see the sadness that was suffocating him. Even they believed the avatar he had created, a Major League Baseball player, handsome, charming, funny, with an easy laugh and a big smile. At 27, Drew was living his dream and yet wanting to die. At about 8 p.m., while sitting on his couch, he lifted his handgun, pressed it against his right temple, and pulled the trigger. That was supposed to be the end of Drew Robinson's story, but over the next 20 hours, he would come to realize it was the beginning of another. It's 6 days before Christmas 2020. Drew is feeling thankful. He wants to tell the world what happened so he can heal and maybe help others heal too. He knows there are a million questions. How did he live for nearly an entire day with a giant hole on the right side of his head with no medical attention? Few people survive self-inflicted gunshot wounds to the head. Even rarer are those who emerge with clarity and with purpose. More than anything, Drew wants to tell his story to help others recognize the awfulness of suicide. He didn't need his family to see what they saw, to go through what they went through, to spend every day wondering whether he's really okay, whether he's going to do it again. The pain of a suicide, or an attempted suicide, is not limited to one person. How can I go through this and not try to help other people, Drew says. This was a huge, painful sign that I'm supposed to help people get through something that they don't think is winnable. Drew is convinced that he's meant to do something. That much was clear when he opened his eyes and realized that he was still alive. Moments after shooting himself, Drew looked around confused and thought, what happened? Why am I still here? He saw blood everywhere. He held his head, trying to stem the bleeding. It didn't help. He decided to shower. When he stepped in, disorientation hit. He slipped and smacked his head on the handle, square on the entry wound. It still didn't hurt. He dried off, then collapsed on his bed. The blood in his mouth turned his stomach, so he returned to the bathroom. As he bent over the toilet, his head struck the porcelain. He peeled himself up and tried to brush his teeth. How ridiculous, he thought, a guy with a hole in his head brushing his teeth. It was around midnight, 4 hours after he pulled the trigger. As Drew collapsed onto his bed again and closed his eyes, he thought, this is where I'm going to die. Drew Robinson grew up on the outskirts of Las Vegas. He was Renee and Daryl Robinson's youngest child. His sister Brittany and brother Chad found him a tag-along and an annoyance, the archetypical little brother who just wanted attention and love. When Renee and Daryl divorced, the Robinson family splintered. The boys went to live with Daryl. Brittany stayed with Renee. They found common ground in one place, the baseball field. Chad grew to 6'5" and was considered one of the best Major League Baseball draft prospects in the country. Drew was undersized but skilled, smooth, and very natural. Almost every weekend, the Robinsons gathered at a baseball tournament, parents putting aside any animus to support the boys. Chad, who was drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers in 2006, set a near-impossible standard, and Drew considered anything short of it a failure. He craved perfection. He made varsity at Silverado High School as a freshman, hit a growth spurt before his junior year, and turned into a prospect. 6'1" with a powerful swing and the ability to play shortstop and the outfield, the best player at Silverado since his brother. He was popular, especially with the girls. Drew went from one to the next until he met Dana Angelova, For Dana, there was something magnetic about Drew, even if it wasn't an obvious match, and I may be pronouncing her name, so I do apologize. He could be loud, bombastic, always trying to look and act cool, but neither Dana nor the world could see Drew how he saw himself, not as the jokester, but as the joke. Drew would talk to himself as if he had an ever-present companion who shared in his misery. When something would go wrong, Drew says, the voice in my head would answer, well, of course, that's just how your life goes. You don't get to enjoy things. Over his last 2 high school seasons, Drew was one of the best players in the historic Vegas area class of 2010 that included Bryce Harper, the first pick in the MLB draft. The Texas Rangers chose Drew in the 4th round with the 136th pick. He received an $198,000 signing bonus. At 18, Drew was a professional baseball player. This accelerated adulthood for him. Drew was not only paying bills, but also navigating politics, managing disappointment, and figuring out how to live in a universe designed to weed out the weak. Drew's brother already lived this reality. The 4:30 a.m. wake-up calls for workouts, the long bus rides, the arm surgeries. Had Drew and Chad spoken more, Drew would have known how pro ball worked, how its physical elements paled in comparison to its mental toll. But talking wasn't their thing. Drew would have to navigate the harsh learning curve on his own, including years of struggling to ascend through the ranks of the minor leagues. Baseball exposed cracks in his facade of stability. His adoration for the game vacillated. He loved baseball one day and loathed it the next. I did it. That was the text Drew sent his family after being told he had made the Rangers' opening day roster in 2017. This was the dream. Drew got 2 at-bats in the Rangers' 3rd game. 7 days later, he was demoted to AAA. The big leagues can be cruel this way. He returned to the majors on May 28th and was sent back down on the 29th. He got called up again on June 24th, hammered a home run for his first major league hit on the 25th, and was demoted on the 26th. The Rangers summoned him again on July 7th, and he remained with the team for the rest of the season. Finally, he was a big leaguer. Although Drew acted as if he belonged, he still felt otherwise. In the clubhouse, he questioned every answer he gave to reporters. On the field, he second-guessed minutiae, how he stood during the national anthem, how he looked running to his position between innings. In December of 2018, the Rangers traded Drew to the St. Louis Cardinals. He decided this would be a fresh start. He proposed to Dana. She said yes, and they set a wedding date. Drew made the Cardinals' big league roster out of spring training, but a week into the season, he was sent down to AAA. He returned on March 31st, played 3 games, then was sent back down. He returned on April 15th and was demoted yet again the next day. Up April 22nd, down April 23rd. He hurt his non-throwing left elbow and needed surgery. On August 28th of 2019, the Cardinals released him. The companion's voice grew louder, and Drew grew more depressed. He knew that he needed help, so he started to see a therapist and read self-development books. He wanted to see himself the way he believed everyone else saw themselves. The San Francisco Giants signed Drew to a non-guaranteed minor league contract on January 6th of 2020. He worried he was destined to end up in the minors yet again. He worried that he wasn't good enough for Dana, and that he never would be. Drew called off the wedding. A question brewed in his mind. Who would care if I'm gone? When he couldn't answer, he started to plan his death. On March 12, 2020, COVID-19 shut down baseball. Drew returned to his empty house in Las Vegas. A week later, he went to a gun store to purchase a weapon. At 7 a.m. on April 17th, Drew woke up and the pain finally hit. When he moved, pieces of his face shifted. He considered getting the gun and trying again. For hours, he slipped in and out of consciousness. The pain worsened. He tried to sit up but collapsed onto the floor. He was thirsty. He mustered the strength to stand. He lurched into the kitchen, filled a cup with water, and to help with the pain, swallowed a Tylenol. Walking back to his room, he stopped in the bathroom and looked at his face. It was unrecognizable. The bullet had mangled his right eye. He thought about baseball, whether anyone could play with one eye. He wondered if thinking about the future meant he was trying to survive. That Tylenol, was it some subconscious sign that he wanted to heal? Around 3:30 p.m., Drew was sitting in the same spot on the couch where he had shot himself. On his coffee table were his gun and his cell phone. He picked up the pistol with his left hand. He held the phone in his right hand. He punched in the numbers 911. He could pull the trigger or he could tap the green dial button. It came to him, he says, in an instant. I want to live, Drew told himself. He called 911. I need an ambulance, he said. I tried to commit suicide last night, and I made it through. I have a huge hole in my head, and I'm in a lot of pain. Police rushed to his home. At 3:57 p.m., Drew was loaded into an ambulance for transport to a University Medical Center or trauma center in Las Vegas. A 9mm bullet exits a handgun traveling upwards of 750 miles per hour. Excuse me. When the bullet entered Drew's head, it almost immediately ruptured his right eyeball. It also fractured his frontal sinus, causing the leakage of cerebrospinal fluid, which poses significant infection risk. The bullet whistled past his left orbital floor and out above his left cheekbone, millimeters from ruining his other eye. Doctors work wonders putting Drew back together physically. The first surgery was to save his right eyelid. The second replaced the shattered bones around it. The procedure took about 2 hours and returned most of the symmetry to his face. The third was to fix the fracture in his sinus and stem the leakage of cerebrospinal fluid. Drew's right eye was beyond repair. The bullet shredded its insides and severed the optic nerve. On June 11th, UMC Trauma scheduled a fourth surgery and enucleation, the removal of Drew's eye. The eye globe was replaced with an implant, which left room in front for a prosthetic eye. Hitting major league pitches, even with two working eyes, is extraordinarily difficult. Doing so with one, and the rear eye at that, is next to impossible. Only one man has lost an eye and played in the major leagues, Whammy Douglas, who pitched 47 innings for the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1957. Drew began playing baseball again that July, just 14 weeks after trying to take his own life. He progressed from batting off a tee indoors to fending off live pitches in a stadium. On October 21, 2020, a ball left his bat and went hissing toward right center field at Las Vegas Ballpark, the AAA stadium where local pros go for off-season hitting sessions. None of his previous 30 or so swings had yielded a home run, but the ball snuck over the fence. Drew took a slight skip and jogged to first base. He stopped there. He'd saved the full trot for a game, on the off chance that someone might offer him a chance to play again. Drew remained in touch with the Giants after getting out of the hospital. In late summer, he asked whether he could speak to the organization's players and staff in recognition of World Suicide Prevention Day on September 10th. Drew figured that if he was going to help others, telling his story would be the most impactful way to do it. The Giants welcomed the idea. Drew arrived at Oracle Park on September 9th. He was nervous. The players, coaches, and other staff gathered around him, and he grabbed the microphone. First, I just want to say thank you for everything, Drew said. What I've been through the last couple of months has been the most powerful experience. Drew took a deep breath before he continued. April 16th, around 8 p.m., I shot myself in the head. A day later, I dialed 911. That night, not only was my life saved, but it was restarted. Drew spoke for 7 minutes. He covered the importance of talking about mental health, the need for support from others, and his intention to give baseball another shot. He saw people crying. Drew left San Francisco that day feeling content. If this was the last thing he ever did with the Giants, he felt good about it. On October 22nd, the day after he hit the home run, Drew panicked. He saw he had missed a text from Giants manager Gabe Kapler. "You awake?" it read. Drew called back. When they spoke, Gabe told Drew that the organization cared about him, they wanted people like him around, and they believed he could still play Major League Baseball. The Giants offered Drew a contract with an invitation to minor league spring training. He wouldn't be in the same clubhouse as the big league players. There wouldn't be any guaranteed money or a roster spot, but he would get the chance to work his way there. Drew couldn't thank Gabe enough. He was going to play baseball again. Following a successful spring training, Drew started for the Sacramento River Cats in their first game of the season on May 6, 2021, against the Las Vegas Aviators. Playing once again in the same city where he was born and raised and where he almost died, Drew struggled. He struck out in each of his 4 at-bats, but the crowd still acknowledged him with vociferous cheers, marveling at his remarkable comeback. Then in his 4th game back, and still in Las Vegas, Drew's bat made contact. The ball soared high and far and landed over the back wall. He had hit a home run, the first of 3 he would go on to hit last year. But mid-season, Drew decided to retire from playing, not from the game itself. Amid his on-field struggles, Drew discussed and ultimately took a job with the Giants' front office as a mental health advocate. He wrote on Instagram, "For the Giants to believe I can help other players address their emotional well-being is truly humbling." Drew ended his post with gratitude, saying to his friends, family, teammates, and most importantly to Dana, "My everything, I thank you." In the drawer of Drew's nightstand lies a small box. Inside is the bullet that burrowed through his head and changed his life. Sometimes he'll remove it, roll it between his index finger and thumb, and remind himself where he was then and where he is now. "I look at this thing, and I think I'm stronger than you," he says. "I'm stronger than I thought I was." There is a little notation here that if you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide or is in emotional distress, contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255, or at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. They did include a picture of Drew after his surgeries and where they had tried to heal his eye. And I want to thank everybody for listening, and I hope you all have a good